braking region, that's where we're really seeing that little bit of rotation. Yeah, there it is. That's where, if there was a tornado, that's where it would be, where that storm, you see, it's kind of flat up here, but then eventually comes down and starts showing a little bit of a hook. And that's where that rotation would be located. Switch over to velocity here, see if I have another updated scan. It's still, we did get an updated scan, but still relatively weak at this moment. What we're looking for here, I'm saying velocity, but to make it easier, it's basically we're looking at storm motion. We're looking at where these winds are blowing. And anywhere you see greens, that is winds blowing towards the radar. The radar located up here in Hammond, so if you have winds blowing towards the radar, that's towards, and then these reds, that's winds blowing away from the radar. And in between, that's where that rotation or tornado would be. So right now, greens, a lot of winds blowing towards the radar, and that's elevated because the storm is also moving in a direction kind of towards the radar itself, but there's not much going away from the radar. And that tells me that the rotation is overall kind of in a weak state right now. Now, it's still possible, given that there is a decent amount of distance between the storm and the radar, that the rotation could be a little bit stronger at lower levels of the atmosphere where the beam of the radar is basically overshooting. So that's why you are still under a tornado warning, and you still want to take this seriously, as the radar could be missing some important information. But like I've been mentioning, rotation has weakened a little bit. Go back a little bit, see it was much stronger in the southwestern portions of St. James Parish, where you clearly saw that rotation with those reds and greens almost completely touching, which a pretty decent and strong area of rotation. But within the last few minutes, it started to weaken. And just got a new scan of storm motion. This is at 2:18. Gonna pan over here and get a zoomed in area, and it's very broad at this moment, but it is still there. I'm gonna show you exactly where that rotation is located. So remember, greens, that's pointing towards the radar. It's located about right there, and not much reds, but you can see those colors not as green, and this would be where we would have winds blowing away. Relatively weak, but looks like there is some area of weak rotation. It would look something like this, but it's not very tight. It's very broad. We don't see like really tight rotation, which you would usually see if you do have a tornado on the ground. It's relatively broad at this point. All right, we're gonna switch over back to a bigger picture view here. Just some showers going on for the rest of the viewing area, and this tornado warned storm is getting very close to the town of South Factory and North Factory. I would say as you're from the northern edge of this tornado warning here, you're still under that tornado warning, don't get me wrong, but I think the threat is a little bit higher the farther south you go. Biggest population towns right now under that highest threat, probably the town of South Factory and road of LA 20. So if you live around this area, you want to make sure you are taking shelter. Rotation has been spotted, all right? Radar indicated rotation, so it's not a confirmed tornado right now. Radar is just seeing some rotation in the storm, and that's why a tornado warning was issued. And here's exactly what it means to have a tornado warning issued for your location. It is a tornado warning means there is a radar detected spinning storm or a rapidly rotating column of air or a funnel seen by storm spotters. In our case right here, we have not seen funnels, do not have a tornado on the ground. Radar has detected some spinning in the storm, and that is why that tornado warning has been issued. There's a little bit of tornado safety. Make sure you get to the lowest level of a sturdy structure. You don't want to be at the second story or even a third story if you have one. You want to be at that very lowest level and in an interior room away from windows. And before you get there, you want to make sure you're wearing closed-toe shoes. Make sure you take your pets, and also find a way to cover your head if you were under the gun from this tornado warning. Here's a good visual of where is bad to be, okay, and then best. So like I said, second floor, pretty much a no-go. If you're able to find an interior room in the second floor, it's okay, but not a great place to be. The very best is going to be on that lowest floor, preferably in the center of your house. And one of the best places you can go is if you have a center room in your house with no windows and it's also a bathroom. The plumbing in the walls actually reinforce that room, and that is why it is the absolute best and safest place to go. Alrighty, here we're going to go back to satellite and radar, give you an update on this storm and exactly what it is doing. Still a tornado warning out in the southeastern portions and southern portions of St. James Parish. This warning goes into 2:45. Going to switch over to a higher resolution view of radar here, and when we're looking at radar, we're looking for any hooks in the storm that can identify where that rotation is located. Not seeing too much at this hour. Had a little bit more hooking earlier. It's kind of flattened out a little bit. Let's see if velocity confirms that as well. Yeah, it's there, it's broad, but nothing overly strong at the moment. But it could tighten up at any second. And I've been showing this, but just a reminder, when we're looking at storm motion, these greens are winds blowing towards the radar, and that would be right here at this moment. In a way, it's relatively weak, really weak. That's why this rotation is rather broad, being about in that area. And in between, that's where we would say the storm is rotating. You have winds blowing toward, winds blowing away, makes a circle, and that's where that rotation is at. But it is relatively broad at the moment. We're not seeing an overly strong signal of rotation. If you had to draw it out right here, it's somewhere like that. It's just a very broad area of rotation, but it could tighten up at any second. So if you are under this tornado warning, you got that notification on your phone was going off like crazy. Like if you live in South Vatry, you need to take cover. We're going to zoom in really tight here, try to see if we could see any roads or anything like that. LA 20, that's the main road where that this tornado warning is getting relatively close to. And then we got the town of South Vatry itself. If you live there, that is probably the highest population town that is under the gun from this tornado warning, and you need to take shelter as the storm still has a little bit of rotation to it. It was stronger a little bit earlier, but I don't want you to let your guard down just yet, because this storm is still rotating, and it will be coming to your area. So some areas around South Vatry that are under the gun, St. Rosary Street, right next to the Dollar General. If you live in that area, this apparent area of rotation is going to move very close to you. South Vatry Park, that is another area where this rotation is going to move. High Ridge Drive, North Rosary Street, Miles Morales Park, all areas around the town where if you live anywhere around this area, you need to take shelter because a tornado warning has been issued. It has not been observed, but what has happened here, the folks at the National Weather Service have looked at this storm, they have looked at the winds in the storm, and they have seen winds blowing toward and away from the radar, and that would indicate some areas of rotation. Right now, still right about this area, relatively broad, but like I mentioned, it could tighten up at any time, and that's why you need to take shelter. We just got a new mesoscale discussion. This has been issued from the Storm Prediction Center, and it says an isolated damaging gust or tornado cannot be ruled out this afternoon and early evening. Severe threat should remain sparse, and a watch insurance is not expected. And The percent of Storm Prediction Center issuing a watch is around 20%. So relatively low chance that a watch is issued for this very low-end severe threat. But what matters right now is that even though it's low, it is at least somewhat materializing with this tornado warning in southern St. James Parish. So for the rest of us, yeah, while it can't be ruled out that we could potentially have another tornado warning through the afternoon and evening, that is a relatively low threat. All right, zooming back in here on our main storm of interest. Still in southeastern St. James Parish, and nothing just jumps off the board on satellite and radar that we have any hooking or any sort of areas where the storm is rapidly rotating. Can't see much on this live radar view. We're going to switch over to velocity here, see if we can see a little more. And again, it looks like, yeah, South Battery, that whatever rotation is there is right on top of you. So it does look relatively weak at this point, but like I've been saying, it could retighten at any time. So I'm going to draw out, this is a new scan of storm motion at 227 from our radar in Hammond. Here's the winds blowing towards that radar. Here's the winds blowing away. And notice the winds blowing away is a lot weaker than the winds blowing towards. And that lets me know that overall, this rotation is rather weak. It's not very strong. It looks to be moving out of St. James Parish at this moment. Storm's moving at a pretty quick pace. Still, stay in your shelter if you're in South Factory. You're not done yet, but you're almost there. Give it another 5 to 10 minutes, and you will most likely be in the clear here. You got pretty heavy rain. We're going to put this on a loop, see how this storm has progressed. And overall, it looks like this storm has started to fall apart. You notice a lot of those reds and pinks in the radar kind of started to go away a little bit. So rain is starting to not get as heavy in the storm, and the storm's kind of shrinking itself. So we might be observing a little bit of a weakening trend with the storm, which is rather good news. And if we switch over to velocity, I think it'll be easy to see it weakening as well. We're going to go back. When it entered the parish, that's when the rotation was at its strongest. You see that clear sign of winds blowing towards and away from the radar. Right in between those two lines is where that apparent rotation would have been if there was a tornado on the ground. But since then, that's kind of changed a little bit. Watch the rotation just start to kind of go away a little bit. It's still kind of there, but it is, I would have to say, relatively weak, and it's more of just a very broad area of rotation. We're just going to draw this in like this, just very, very broad, nothing very tight, and that lets me know probably not anything on the ground at this moment. But like I said earlier, look where the radar is located. We zoom out here. It's located in Hammond. It's decently close, but not very close. So we still might be missing a little bit of very low-level detail in this storm. And the rotation, there is a chance it's a little bit stronger below where that radar beam is shooting. So that's why still, if you were in this tornado warning, still take cover. And it looks like that it is starting to move out of St. James Parish, which is relatively good news for you folks in South Vatry, because that was the main area that was under the gun from this tornado warning. Another look at live radar here, just to make sure that the main threat is beginning to move out. And overall, the storm is starting to get relatively weaker. Here's the radar update at 2:30. You're about to get some heavy rain in South Factory. Don't let that scare you. Still stay in your shelter, but we are almost done here. We're getting to the tail end of this threat under this tornado warning. Make sure with velocity. Yeah, we are almost done here. It looks like that rotation is almost completely out of the parish. And once it does move out, I'll be able to sound the all clear, at least for our viewing area, as this moves into St. John the Baptist Parish. And we will wrap it up here on air and send it back to regular programming. But we are almost done here. I am just about ready to sound the all clear, but it's still right at the edge of the viewing area. I'm gonna wait for one more scan here just to be 100% sure before I send it back. Gotta go to a big picture view here real quick, check on the rest of the viewing area. And yes, still seeing some renewed shower activity west of Baton Rouge, some showers around the rest of the viewing area. Nothing that impactful at the moment. But like I mentioned, we do have a very low-end risk for severe weather that could include a few damaging wind gusts and a brief tornado or two, but this threat is relatively low. It will last through the afternoon and evening hours, but as of right now, there is only one storm with a tornado warning. That is just about to exit St. James Parish, right on the verge of doing so. You are almost in the clear in South Vatry. Switch it over to velocity here. Just waiting for that next scan. We are almost there to getting that next radar scan. Just about to exit the parish, and I'm gonna highlight once again where that rotation is, because it is extremely broad, but where you see those greens, that's winds blowing towards the radar and not much blowing away. But where it's not as green in this area, that's where those winds would be blowing away, but it is really weak. So that tells me overall the rotation is pretty broad, about to exit the parish. And once that happens, I will be able to give the all clear for anywhere around Vatry, South Vatry. So we are almost to that point. If you're listening to me and you are taking cover, I'm about to sound the all clear. You don't have to do so any longer. Just got a new velocity scan. You just saw that. And yeah, I'm about ready to say if you're in South Vatry, I'm going to go ahead and sound the all clear. You might be getting some heavy rain. We switch over to live radar here. That rain is even starting to move out as well. But yeah, this storm is now completely cleared St. James Parish. So if you're in South Vatry or you had this tornado warning in St. James Parish, even though if it's still for your location, you are in the all clear. The storm has now moved past the St. James Parish. It is out of the viewing area. It's now entered St. John the Baptist Parish. So if you're in Vatry, South Vatry, you can now come out of your safe space because you are good to go, and this tornado warning should expire for your area pretty shortly. All right, well, that's going to do it all for here, and now I'm going to send it back to regular programming.